All right. Thank you very much for joining us today in our introduction class for economics for managers, which is PBA4801, an introduction. And if you are new to economics or if you haven't done anything related to economics, you are at the right place, because we are going to take an approach that makes sure that you understand the basic concepts of economics. And we are going to do the same as well for accounting. And I'm going to share more details towards the end of this class. So sit back and relax as we are about to start. All right. So who are we? Okay. The name of our organization is Universal Research Institute, which is a global research company that provides academic. All right, so Universal Research Institute is a global research company that provides academic as well as professional research support for learners as well as professionals. In other words, we try to bridge the gap between distance learning institutions as well as distance learners. And we provide also research support for different organizations and different individuals. Okay, so what is the roadmap in this module specifically? If you look at your study material, you might find that these are some of the key aspects that you need to understand. But broadly speaking, we have microeconomics as well as macroeconomics. So when it comes to microeconomics, and if you try to distinguish the two broad fields of economics, you'd find out that microeconomics simply focuses on the study of individual behavior of market participants, or in other words, individual behavior of economic agents. And who are those economic agents? It's the consumers, that's the government, the producers, financial institutions, and many more. But basically, those are the key economic agents that we're looking at. So we'll be analyzing their behavior. And what we mean by behavior, we are looking at how do they make their choices given the limited resources that they will be having, be it at an individual level or even at a national level or at an organizational level. Okay, so on microeconomics, you need to understand the basic concepts and models, and this is going to be our focus in today's class. And we are also going to touch on demand and supply as well as market pricing or markets and pricing. Then, if you look now at macroeconomics, this is whereby we now aggregate, or we are studying the economy as a whole. Okay, we are studying the economy in its entirety instead of focusing on individual behavior. We are studying the economy as a whole. We are going to focus, these are the topics that are going to be covered in our classes. Okay, so this is the roadmap. You should keep this in mind and be able to distinguish between micro and macroeconomics. By simply looking at a question, you should know whether it's a macro question or it's a micro question. Okay, right. That being said, we want to start on the basics. We want to build our foundation by understanding what is economics. Before we go any further, you should be able to define economics so that it helps you to even understand the broader or even more difficult concepts that we are going to face in this module. So let's get the basics right by defining what economics is and what it does. So economics is a social science that is concerned with production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. If you look at this definition, we have three key terms that we have. Number one, goods are produced by who? The producers, the suppliers. the manufacturers. And then they are distributed through different distribution channels, which can be your logistics companies, and finally they will reach their final consumer at the end. So in economics, we are focused in that, but that's not the only definition that we really care about. There's also another definition that says economics studies how individuals, businesses, governments, and societies, how do they allocate their scarce resources to satisfy their needs and wants and needs, right? You can see that here I've underlined some concepts or terms. We are going to spend a few minutes trying to understand those terms in detail, right? Before I define, or before I actually dive deeper into these concepts, let's first look at these institutions that I've highlighted here. In broader terms, these individuals, businesses, government, and societies, we call them economic agents. So when you're looking at an economy as a whole, it is made up of businesses, it is made up of governments, it's made up of, or let me say government departments, it is made up of individual consumers. That includes me and you, and the society at large. But each and every agent in this economy, they behave in their own way, in a way to maximize their satisfaction or to maximize their utility, if I may say. So you find out that when you're studying economics, we are focusing on understanding the behavior of some or all of these agents, right? So I've underlined scarcity here, or scarce resources. When resources are scarce, right, what does it mean in the context of economics? You can see here that the central concept in economics is scarcity, and I've put that in bold and in red as well, so that you know that whenever we are studying economics, the central point that we are trying to address is scarcity. Right. What is scarcity? Scarcity is a situation where resources are limited against unlimited or limitless needs and wants. We can all agree here that in as much, no matter the budget that you'll be having or the income that you are earning as an entrepreneur or as an employee, it won't be enough in some sense. Even if we give each one of us here 1 million, at some point you get to understand that it's not even enough, given the needs and wants that you need to satisfy. That is at an individual level, but it doesn't only apply to an individual level, but it also it is also applicable at national level, whereby we have economic problems even here in South Africa that are not yet, that are the government is trying to address, or the government is struggling to address. For example, there is unemployment. If resources were not scarce, we wouldn't be having unemployment, or a lot of it, if I may say. So the main reason why we study economics, it emanates from scarcity. Okay, so you should keep that in the back of your mind. So what is scarcity? We say scarcity implies, okay, we've defined scarcity as a situation in which our resources are scarce, or they are limited actually in actual sense. And then scarcity implies choice and eventually opportunity cost or trade-off. What do we mean here? We are saying whenever we have the problem of scarcity, it means that individuals, therefore, would have to make choices. And whenever you're making a choice, you are definitely trading off with something. In order to get something, you need to give up something, right? I always say, I give an example of you attending this class. In as much as It might be free, but there's time involved. We are paying in form of time because there's a lot of things that we could be doing at this time, but we've chosen to be here. So that's scarcity of time. But in general, resources, they are very scarce. Be them monetary resources, we have time resources, you know, etc. But they are never sufficient. So that calls for the study of economics. So you can see that scarcity of resources against unlimited needs or wants calls for the study of economics. I think you can now see the picture of where we are going. So the central point here is scarcity. Right. Remember, I've told you about economic agents. But in this cartoon, I've just shown you, or I'm just showing you, two main economic agents in an economy. On the left-hand side here, we have the consumers. And then on the right-hand side, we do have the business or business in general. But please take note that this is a simplified model of economic agents because we don't have government here involved. We don't have financial institutions. We don't have any other regulatory body or anything that regulates economic activity in the economy. But I'm just trying to simplify things here. So we have economic mood swings. Right? So the consumers here are saying, no, you get off and push. I'm waiting for job growth before I begin to buy or I begin buying. These are the consumers, right? And it's true because they also need a push in terms of, it can be job creation, which helps them to get income, which they can spend on businesses. Let's look at the representative from the business is saying, no, you push, I'm waiting for customers before I begin creating jobs. Can you see the problem that we already have here? Okay. Let me just get one from you guys who want to have a contribution. Who do you think must push in this case? This is a swing, it's an economic mood swing, but who do you think is supposed to make a push for things to go forward? Let me hear from T. I think there's a hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, between the two, I think the business can push in a form of investment, expecting your return on your investment later on.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution. Let me hear from others, or you can even type in the chat section if you can, and then we can have a short discussion, right? But this is somehow the reality that we are facing as an economy, whereby businesses on their side, they are also waiting for a push. It can be from the government, from the consumers, or from external forces, but that's the situation that we might be having. Consumers, they will be also crying to say, no, we don't have the income to spend, the business. So now, what is going to happen for to solve this situation that we are having at hand? Right, I think a lot of people are saying businesses. Okay, we'll come back to that at a later stage, but I just wanted to give you a picture of some of the economic agents that we might be having in the economy. On this side, we have consumers and businesses. I'm going to illustrate this using economic models that we use as economists to try and understand complex business situations or scenarios that we'll be having in the economy. Right, thank you so much for your contribution. So let me illustrate opportunity cost using a buffet example. Right, at one point in time, perhaps you have attended a, you've gone to a restaurant and there is a buffet, and then picture this. When you get to the buffet, let me say you can't eat everything. Am I correct or wrong? You can say I'm wrong. There will be a lot of food there, but you are limited by the size of your stomach, what you can take, right? Given that you can't eat everything that is on the table, you need to make a choice. you need to select, am I going to take chicken, beef, or anything that is available? But you are constrained by the size of your tummy. Okay? So the moment you are making a choice of saying, okay, I'm taking this, I'm leaving this, that's opportunity cost. So what is opportunity cost? Opportunity cost is the cost of foregoing the best available, okay, I can say, okay, opportunity, next best alternative that is available, right? There's beef, fish, chicken, etc. But now you need to choose. Why? Because if you had a very, very big like tummy that can accommodate anything, then there was no need for us to even worry about opportunity cost, because you were going to take everything, and that was going to be unprofitable for the business that is running the restaurant. You understand what I mean? Right. So from this, I think you can picture the idea of where we are going in terms of studying economics, because resources are limited. So in the example that we are facing right now, we are looking at the buffet example, and the timing is your limited resources, and you need to make choices on the available dishes or food that is in front of you. So if you understand this, you can translate it into any economic problem to say, okay, as an organization, our finances, or we don't have enough budget to do whatever that we want to do. So we need to make a choice, either to invest in project A, and then we leave project B. But when you're leaving project B, you're facing an opportunity cost, right? What you could have enjoyed, or what you could have done, given that you leave an alternative. Remember, when you're making a choice, there will be a lot of options to choose from, right? And then now, the moment you say, I'm going to choose this, I'm going to leave this, whatever you are leaving is an opportunity cost to you, because that's the cost of foregoing the best alternative available to you. So this example might not really be perfectly applicable, but I just want you to picture it in a different way and then bring it to economic examples or economic sense, if I may say. Right. Now, we want to look at economic models. Do we have those from engineering departments or science, right? Right. So, in general, a model, in general, before we bring it to economics, a model is a simplified description of reality, right? A simplified description of reality. Okay, sorry for that. So we're saying an economic model, sorry, before we define an economic model, we need to understand what a model is. So a model in general is a simplified description of reality. So we have the real world out there, but we try to simplify it, okay? Even if when you look at those automobile companies that manufacture cars, before they actually come up with the actual version or actual the actual model or the actual car that we now drive on the road, they first set up a model of the car, and then they do some tests and see if the actual product is going to work. Right. So the model now is used as a simplification of the reality. Okay. Right. So it is designed to illustrate complex processes. we know that the world in reality is generally complex. So for us to simplify our lives, we try to come up with models that act as a replica of the true world out there, or they try to mimic the real world. Now, let's bring this to economics now. So an economic model helps us to understand how the real world or real economy works. So whatever model that you are going to discuss in this class or in other classes to come, you need to understand that it's simply a simplification of the real world. So there could be a lot of limitations to that model. Why? Because when you look at these models that we have in front of us, there are different cars or different models of cars. And then they do not really function in a way that the actual car will do, right? But they try in a way to replicate or to try to mimic the true world out there, or the true model of a car, right? So now let's look at our first economic model, which is the production possibility curve, or the production possibility frontier. Some they call it production possibility frontier, production possibility curve. So PPC or PPF, it doesn't really matter. But remember, at the back of your mind, you should know that whichever model that you are going to look at, be it in microeconomics, in macroeconomics, it's simply a way to try to simplify the real world. Try to simplify the description of reality or of the actual economy. Right. This is the PPC, or the production possibility curve. In this PPC, we assume that, or we are assuming that a company or an economy is manufacturing only two goods, which are bikes and cars. Can you see from the statement that I've just made, an economy cannot produce only two goods. There are a lot of goods that an economy can produce, or a company can produce. But here we are just having a simplification, or sort of an assumption that we are making so that we can understand how the real economy works. So assuming two goods, bikes and cars, are being produced. So this curve here is actually the production possibility curve, production possibility frontier, right? So let's define it. The PPF represents the maximum output combinations of two goods or services that an economy can produce, given the resources that are available and the technology that we are having. So any point that is on this PPF is an efficient point. Why? Because all the resources that are available are fully utilized. Okay? But, okay, let me define efficiency a little bit before we move on to inefficiency. So when you're looking at efficiency, we want a situation whereby it is not possible for you to increase the production of cars without reducing the production of bikes. Why? Look at point A. At point A, let's say you are producing on 2 cars and then producing 900 bikes. The moment you want to produce any additional car, you need to reduce on your production of, or you need to cut the production of bikes. So when you cut on the production of bikes, that's opportunity cost. You are giving up something in order to get something additionally. So the same applies. If you now want to move from point B to C, or let's say you now want to produce more cars or an additional car, the 4th car, for you to do that, you need to give up about 300 bikes for you to gain an additional car. So this doesn't necessarily work. It's not a one-way, it's not a one-way, if I may say. We can also look at the other way around. If you are producing 4 cars and now you want to, okay, let's say you are producing at C and producing 500 bikes. Now you want to produce more bikes. You need to cut on car production. And then you increase the production of bikes. So in general, this is what we are saying when we are discussing scarcity of resources. Is even indicated in the diagram. I will show you how. efficiency can be shown in the diagram. We can also discuss opportunity costs. Why? Because for you to get to gain something, you need to give up something. So for you to produce more bikes, you need to give up on car production. Right? So what do we mean by efficiency? You need to master this. It's not possible to produce one more of cars without reducing bikes production. Whenever we are on the PPF curve, if you want to move, whether to the left or to the right, it's not possible without reducing one of the commodities. Suppose that we are at point D, which is not marked in the diagram, but it's somewhere here. If we are here and then you want to move to C, or you want to move to any point to the left, it means that you need to cut on car production for you to increase the production of bikes. That's efficiency. If you are able to increase both cars and bikes, it means somehow there is inefficiency. Why? Because if we suppose a point E that is inside the PPF, like at point E, suppose point E is here. If you are at point E here, if you want to increase, you can increase both cars and bikes, or you can increase cars without reducing bikes if you are at any point within the PPF. So that's inefficiency. So countries or economies, they always strive, or they are striving to get as close as they can to the PPF. In as much as it might be difficult or somehow impossible to produce on the PPF, because there are always some resources that are lying idle, or that will be lying idle, or that will be underutilized. If you look in South Africa, there's land that is lying idle. There are people who are unemployed. There's a lot happening, resources inefficiently utilized. Therefore, there is potential for any economy to improve or to do better in terms of efficiency. So the points that are below the curve indicate inefficiency, that is underutilization of resources. Points that are on the PPF, it's efficiency. Why? Because it's not possible to increase production of one good without lowering the production of another good. Beyond the PPF, which is another point which I didn't put, but for illustration purposes, you should put that point. Let's say, okay, A, B, C, D is inside the PPF, and then E is outside the PPF. It's unattainable. The resources available cannot allow you to produce outside the PPF. So as you move down the curve, you are showcasing the trade-offs. Whether you're moving down or up the curve, whichever way, we are showing that we are demonstrating trade-offs, giving up one thing in order to get another thing. Any questions? Right. I would want you to research on the idea that the PPF can actually shift outward or inwards, depending on whether the economy has discovered a new technology, or remember, PPF can be used at firm level or at company level, where we are looking at a company that is producing certain goods, and then we can expand that to a national level, whereby we are looking at the PPF for the entire economy. All right. So when you have new technology that reduces costs, that increase production, which means your PPF might shift. There might be a parallel shift of the PPF to the right. But if the economy shrinks or anything bad happens, COVID-19 or something, the PPF might shift inwards, indicating reduced possibilities of producing at a certain level of output. Right, that was our first model. Second model is the circular flow of income. On the circular flow of income, I want you to understand that I have only included two agents here. Remember the cartoon that I've shown you earlier on? We have companies or businesses and households on the other hand. So this arrow here is the flow of goods and services. Where do the goods flow from and to whom? They flow from the companies because they are the ones who produce the goods, and then they go to the goods markets, right? Where the companies sell these goods, and households, they buy them. When they are bought by these houses obviously for consumption. In return, these guys, they actually sell their factors of production. Like what? We have labor, right? You sell your labor on the labor market, or what we call in general factors of production market, or the market for factors of production, where households sell their labor, their capital, their land, and companies, they buy these factors of production, and these factors of production, which are owned by the households, are used as inputs in production. For any production to take place, mostly we need inputs. In any case, we need inputs. We need your labor, your capital, land, and other resources that we might need for production. So these inputs are then used in the production process to produce the goods which are now sold on the. So it's a circular flow of, but the arrow that I've shown you now is the flow of goods and services. Let's look at the flow of income now. They go in opposite direction. Remember, when you go to a shop to buy, be it Checkers, ShopRite, or any shop, you are going holding your income, you're holding currency, you're holding you are having purchasing power. You go to the shop, you give them your cash, or you swipe, or whatever you do, which means cash is flowing out from you, and then in return you are getting goods, right? So that is what is happening here. Look at this. Let's look at spending. Households, they go to the goods market, they are spending income. They are spending. To them, it's an expense, but where is that income coming from? Because they are selling labor, land, and capital on the factors market, they get income for that in the form of wages, in the form of rentals, in the form of, if you're owning property, if you're owning land, if you are supplying your labor on the labor market, that's how you get your income, and that's, you are going to spend it on the goods market. But if you look, it's like two sides of the same coin. To you, it's an expense, but to the business, it's money, it's revenue, right? So that revenue is used again to higher factors of production, which is in the form of payment of wages, payment of rentals, and profits to the owners of the factors of production. Right, so this is how the income, goods and services flow within the economy. But remember, this is a simplified version of the circular flow of income. We can complicate it further by adding government into the picture. Government would come in and tax households, tax companies at the same time. We also have financial institutions coming in, helping to facilitate the trading of goods and services, consumption, distribution of goods and services in the economy. But remember, always not. It's a model. That's not the reality, but we try to simplify it so that it becomes easier to understand. Based on what we've discussed so far, can you picture some of the ideas that we've generated here and try to link them up in contemporary businesses that we are living in or that we operate in, you know? So the question here is, are the basic concepts that we have discussed so far applicable to contemporary businesses? Okay, how can you apply whatever we've learned here, or how can you relate to what is happening in the real world? These are models, but we can try to understand what is happening in the real world. Anyone want to add or want to say something before I move on? Okay.
Yes, can I add?
Yeah, please.
I think it also applies even with government, because as taxpayers, we pay the taxes as an expense. Government gets it as revenue, and then in terms of providing the services to the people of the country, they are spending.
Yes.
So it also goes like that. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you so much. It also, remember, we said we can also add government or other agencies in this model, whereby if you add government, there's tax revenue that is earned by the government, both from the households, from the companies, and to the companies and households, or businesses and households, this will be an expense, right? It's an expenditure for businesses and households. If you are paying tax, to you it's an expense, but to business it's revenue, right? So that's why it's called a circular flow of income, because income will be flowing from one hand to another, from one institution to the next. But we can even make this model more applicable or more real by addressing or adding issues to do with injections and withdrawals, whereby when you save your income, saving an income, some they say saving is good, some saving is bad. There's a literature on that. There's literature on that. Why is it bad? Because when you save, you are taking income out of the circular flow of income. You are keeping it, okay? Right, but if you keep on spending, that's good for business. But remember also saving is good for future investment. Okay, that's another issue for macroeconomics. We're going to discuss it further. Right, so let's look at market forces. This is demand and supply. Well, what do we mean by market forces? When we say market forces, we look at these two main forces, the supply side and the demand side. What is demand? What is supply? Demand is the amount of a good or service that buyers are willing and able to purchase, right? In actual sense, this is what we call effective demand. Someone might be willing to purchase a good, but they are not able. That's not effective demand. Effective demand, we want someone who is willing, number one, able. So it's willingness and ability together brings us to effective demand. What is supply? The same concept applies. Supply is the amount of a good that sellers are willing and able to sell. A company might be willing to sell 1 million units, but are they able to do that? That's another thing that brings us to supply or effective supply. Right, so now what are we going to do? We're going to start with the demand before we move to supply, and then we bring the two pieces together in a single diagram. Right, before I move on, can I hear from you guys, what are the determinants of demand? Anyone who wants to, what determines the amount of a good that customers will buy from your shop, buy from your business, buy from your government institution? What determines that? Anyone? I just want two factors. Please.
Needs.
Right. It's right. We have price.
The use
price
of the product.
Of a good. What? You said what?
The use of the product.
Can you expand on that?
So what the product actually does. For instance, if I want a cutting machine, I would be willing to actually buy that that cutting machine. It's more about the actual product.
Yes. Okay. Right. So we have so many determinants of demand, right, as you are going to see in the next slide, but chief among them is the price of the good. And when you're saying price of the good, it's on price of a good, on price, which is the price of that particular good. We have income. The more income you have, the more you're likely to purchase a certain good. But please take note, there are some goods for which, as your income increases, you reduce their demand. Can someone give me an example of such commodities for which, if the income increases, you reduce the demand for the good? When your income rises, cut down on spending on certain commodities. What type of goods are those? I think, Mashallah, your hand is up. I can't hear you. Maybe you're saying something. Okay. Your hand is up. All right. But you can talk if. Right. So we can see a lot of these factors in the chat section. So let's go and see some of them. In this example, I'm looking at the demand or the determinants of demand for Pampers. Pampers being a specific diaper company, or sorry, not company, but brand. Okay. Then we have on price of the Pampers. You know, when the price of Pampers go up, right, there is likely to be a reduction in the quantity demanded of that particular good, right? We have income. When income increases, we are likely to see more Pampers being purchased, right? The price of other related goods. When we talk of other related goods, we can talk of complements, what we call complementary goods or substitute goods. Complementary goods are goods that can be used hand in hand, or goods that are used hand in hand. Fuel and cars, right? A very good example. If you're looking at the Pampers example, maybe we look at, I don't know if this is real or applicable, Pampers and wipers. I don't know, but if you can argue. Then, so when you're looking at the price of other related goods, we are not looking at the own price of a commodity, but goods that are related to the good in question. If you're looking at Pampers, we are looking at substitutes, like maybe Huggies or any other brand of diapers, right? Taste and preferences. If someone have got a preference for a certain good, they are likely to buy more of that particular good because that's their taste, right? An individual might say, I prefer this to that, or I like this. If they like it, they are likely to buy more of that particular commodity. What about expectations? We've seen this already in the chart section, right? If you expect, these are expectations, if you expect to receive more income next week, if someone promises you that I'm going to give you 100K next week, what are you going to do? Your spending patterns are likely to change, and you're likely to purchase more now, right? In anticipation of future income to be received. Population, right? The more the people are living in a certain area, the more they are likely to purchase a certain commodity in that particular area, right? So population plays a key role in determining demand for a certain good. What about government policies? Yes, they do play a key role, because if government announces today to say no more, okay, maybe research has been done and it finds out that certain commodity, maybe chocolates, they've got increased risks of causing cancer or whatever, and then it's announced, people start to buy less of a commodity, or they might stop buying it altogether because of government policies that are announced. You can add your own factors that determine the demand for a certain product, right? So after defining demand, determining factors, or explaining the determinants of demand or factors that affect demand, we need to depict a demand curve. So a demand curve, generally, it is a downward sloping curve, which indicates that at a very high price, low quantity of diapers be purchased. As the price falls, we find out that there will be an increase in the quantities of Pampers purchased. So the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. The lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. Right. So in short, a demand curve depicts the relationship between price and quantity. It shows quantity demanded at each price. Ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus simply means holding all the other factors constant. Holding all other factors that affect demand constant. What we are allowing to vary here is simply the price. I will show you why we are doing that. Because in economics, we assume we hold some other factors constant so that we can concentrate on the factor that we want to analyze. Otherwise, it will become complex to look at all the factors changing simultaneously. It becomes difficult to analyze. So we make use of the assumption of ceteris paribus. It's a Latin word, which simply means holding all other or all else constant. So it means holding all other factors constant, right? So the demand curve exhibits a relationship between price and quantity. Higher price, lower Q, or lower quantity, and vice versa, ceteris paribus. So this indicates a movement along the demand curve. So whenever we are looking at the law of demand, the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, and vice versa. That's the law of demand. and it is a movement along the same demand curve. There is no shift here. When the price of a good increases, demand doesn't shift, or demand curve doesn't shift. It simply moves along the same curve. Why? Because from this price to this price, we are on the same demand curve, but quantity has increased, the price has fallen. The opposite is true. If price is increased, quantity falls, but still on the same demand curve. Right. What about shifts now in the demand curve? Please pay attention. Any other determinant of demand other than on price of a good is an effect of shifting the demand curve, shifting the entire demand curve. So the the curve can shift either to the left, which is a decrease in demand, or it can shift to the right, which is an increase in demand. So now the next question will be, what may cause the demand curve or the demand curve for Pampers to shift to the left or to the right? Let's discuss. Right. One might think of price of substitutes. Like, okay, let's hear from the chart section. Price of what now? Because if you say price, we might have price, the on price of a good, which is the price of Pampers, or price of substitutes, or price of other related goods, which can be complements or substitutes. So you need to be very careful when you say price, because when you say price, the next question will be which price? Because there are so many prices. Yes, complements or complementary goods or substitute goods. Let's start with substitutes, like, for example, Huggies. If the price of Huggies increases as a substitute goods, what do you think would happen to the demand for Pampers in the market? If the price of Huggies, which is a substitute good, if it increases or if it goes up, what happens to the demand curve for Pampers? Or what happens to demand? Demand for Pampers increases. Why? Consumers would shift or they will switch from the other brand and they'll buy more of this brand because it has become relatively cheaper. All right? So we can see that price of substitutes, if it increases, so you can also do the opposite. If the price of substitute like Huggies, Pampers, Huggies diapers, if the price of Huggies goes down, they've become relatively cheaper. Consumers are going to shift away from Pampers and then they'll buy more of this one, the good in question, or the other, the substitute good. What about complements? I have included baby wipes, but not being sure if it's a perfect example, but if you look at perfect examples, let's look at price of cars and fuel, or diesel or petrol, fuel in general, right? If the price of cars increases, less of the cars is going to be bought, and that will have an impact as well on the demand for fuel, right? In terms of complementary goods, if complementary goods go, this is the example that I've just given you. When the price of the complementary good increases, when that good is used in conjunction or together with another good, it definitely affects the quantity demanded of another good. Okay? So you should be able to illustrate this using a diagram. Right. Okay, Chapelo, you have something, petrol versus electric cars. Maybe you want to expand on that for the benefit of everyone, to say what is happening, just to explain, to say, okay, if the price of petrol goes up, or if the price of electric cars goes up, or something like that. Maybe you want to expand?
Hello, guys. I think
Yes.
it is, as you've said, that if the price of one increases, the demand will rise for the other product or the other item. Just as simple as that, and vice versa. I don't think it's that complicated. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's it. And thank you so much for that. We can also look at the effect of an increase in the price of Huggies on the demand for Pampers. So when you look at this, you see that we are assuming that there is an increase in the price of Huggies, which is a substitute good. And in economics, we need to make sure that our X's are labeled correctly. Quantity demanded of what? Quantity demanded of Pampers, for example. Then we have the price of Pampers in rands, in dollars, or whatever unit. And then we should indicate that, assuming that D was the initial demand curve before the increase in the price of Huggies. Now, when the price of Huggies increases, consumers would find Pampers relatively cheaper, and therefore, for the very same price, let's say they were selling at $12 per unit. For that very same price, they are now demanding more units. You see, for the same price, more units are being demanded now. Why? Because people are now switching from Huggies and buying more of Pampers. Now, you can also look at the opposite. If the price of Huggies falls, then the arrows will be the opposite, moving from, let's say, D2, going back to D1, right? So for the very same price, less quantities of Pampers is now purchased. Simple? Right. I've illustrated the demand curve. Now let's look at the supply curve. And lastly, we are going to bring the two forces together to establish an equilibrium in the market. So let's recall that quantity supplied is the amount of a good that firms are willing and able to sell, right, at a given price. Now, what is the supply? What is a supply curve? A supply curve plots price of a good against the supply, holding everything else constant. When we are drawing the supply curve or demand curve, we assume that the income, cost, or everything else is held constant. And then later on, we allow those factors to come in to vary at the same time, and then we see what is likely to be the outcome on the market. So note the movement along the supply curve as opposed to the shift. So when you are plotting the supply curve, what we observe is a movement along the supply curve, which is similar to the movement along the demand curve, not a shift. Whenever we introduce other factors that determine supply, apart from the price of a good, then the supply curve is going to shift. Otherwise, we just have a movement along the same supply curve. So, based on what we have discussed above, we have, or we can witness, the law of supply. So what is the law of supply? At a higher price, more is supplied on the market. If you have supply on the market, you like higher prices as opposed to consumers. So that's why you see that these are forces, because they are acting in opposite direction, completely opposite direction. When the price is higher, consumers are not happy, right? They buy less. When price is higher, suppliers are happy, they supply more. So when these two forces are moving in opposite direction, for a market to be stable, there should be an equilibrium where both parties are happy or both parties are satisfied. Now, before we move on to the equilibrium issue that I've already discussed like now, let's look at the determinants of supply. We look at how the supply curve can shift. Number one, on price of a good. If you're a supplier, when the price of a good of the good that you're supplying is increased, you are willing to supply more. Right. What about input prices or price of inputs that you are using in your own production process? If the price of inputs like electricity, if it increases, it affects your cost of production and you are likely to cut on production, right? Due to increased cost of production or increased production cost, right? Okay, let's say you are in the diaper industry, you look at your inputs that you need. Definitely you need labor, you need capital, you need your electricity as an input, fuel, or any other input that you need there. So those are the inputs that we are looking at, but their prices now is what we are looking at as a determinant of supply, how much you're willing to supply on the market. Let's look at technology, right? Technology is a key determinant of supply. If the diaper industry, okay, not diaper industry, but let's say Procter & Gamble, which is the manufacturer of Pampers diapers, when they discover a new diaper technology, which reduces production cost, they are able to supply even more on the market. You understand? Let's look at this number of suppliers on the market. If more suppliers are supplying tomatoes on the market, supply is going to increase generally. Tax, government also can have an effect on the supply of a good on the market. Higher taxes might be a deterrent of supply in the market. We also have suppliers' expectations, right? Yes, thank you. Government regulations, that's where tax, as an example, fit in. Thank you so much for that contribution. Then we also have suppliers' expectations. If suppliers expect that the price of a good is likely to increase tomorrow, if you're a supplier, what do you do to supply today? Can anyone jump in? If as a supplier you anticipate that the price of your good or the price of the good that you are selling is likely to increase in next week or next month or tomorrow, what do you do today to supply? Do you supply more? Do you supply less?
Supply less.
Less today, because you're going to sell more. You're going to sell at a higher price tomorrow. So expectations also play a role in terms of determining what amount of good will be supplied on the market. I hope this is making sense. Now, still with our old friend, the Pampers example. Now let's look at the supply curve. On the supply curve, this is the supply curve, having the quantity supplied of Pampers and the price of Pampers. So at a higher price, we can all see that more would be supplied. At a lower price, less is going to be supplied, right? So at a higher price, more Pampers are supplied. At the lower, the opposite holds, which is what I've just said. The moment we introduce other factors in the picture, what do we mean by other factors? By other factors, we are talking about all these other factors apart from on price of a good. Because on price of a good simply demonstrate a movement, because at a lower price, we have this much quantity supplied, but at a higher price, more is supplied, right? So this is just a movement on the same supply curve, no shifts here. But the moment you talk of changes in input prices, let's say electricity bills have gone up, or maybe there's a discovery of a new technology in the industry or in the market, which reduces costs, companies are now able to supply more. Input prices, when they increase, it means an increase in cost of production, and companies are likely to reduce supply. So what I'm saying is that the moment we introduce other factors into the picture apart from on price of a good, then the supply curve is going to shift either to the right or to the left. Please take note. If supply shifts to the left, that's a reduction in supply. If the supply curve shifts to the right, that's an increase in supply. Okay. Right. So let's look at the shifts in supply curve. Suppose a new diaper technology that lowers production costs is discovered by Procter & Gamble, right? The company that manufactures Pampers. So suppliers will be able to supply, let me not say suppliers, let me say that particular company, which is Procter & Gamble, is going to be able to supply more on the market. Hence, a shift of the curve from S1 to S2. Can you notice? At the same price, because initially before the discovery of the new technology, less was being supplied, or Q1 was being supplied. But now we have Q2 being supplied. So at the same price, more quantity of diapers is supplied on the market. So at the same price, this is what I've just said, more is supplied, which is a rightward shift of the supply curve. Can you see what I was illustrating previously on the previous slide, that a rightward shift of the supply curve is an increase in supply, as opposed to a leftward shift in the supply curve, which will show that at the same price, less quantity is supplied on the market. Right. Is that clear to everyone? Let me get thumbs up if you are really following with what we are doing. Or otherwise, if you are not really following, so that maybe I can repeat what is happening. Okay? Right. So we have discussed supply separately, demand separately. Now it's time to bring these two together. So I can see some thumbs up, which means we are still together. We are still on the same boat. So these two forces, remember, they are acting in opposite direction. Can you see what I was saying? At a higher price, less will be demanded. But at that very same higher price, more will be supplied on the market. Okay? All right. Just hold on, guys. I'll be back just now. All right. Sorry for that. But I was just trying to say, remember, I said the forces are acting in opposite direction because we are having a downward sloping demand curve and an upward sloping supply curve, indicating that at a higher price, less is demanded. Higher price, more is supplied. At a lower price, let's say below equilibrium. At a lower price that is below equilibrium, more is demanded on the market. But here, less will be supplied. Firms will be willing to supply less on the market. Right. That is what we have so far. But I want to illustrate to you how do we come to an equilibrium. The only way to understand how the equilibrium is reached, which is our aim here, we need to understand, let's destabilize the situation, or let's destabilize the equilibrium and then indicate how are we going to come back to the equilibrium. So let's start with excess supply on the market. When the price is above equilibrium, let's say we have a price P1, which is way above the equilibrium level. At that price, companies are willing to supply more of the good than consumers are willing to buy. In other words, consumers, let's say, are willing to buy only 70 units. When companies are willing to supply 100 units, there will be excess supply of 30 units that would remain unbought on the market. Right. So if there is excess supply on the market, then suppliers would bid down the price. Let me give an example. If you're selling tomatoes on the market, and then you find out that every day you are not able to sell everything that you are bringing on the market, what will be your next move? One of the next moves is to lower the price. So the suppliers themselves will start bidding down the price until they reach an equilibrium level at P star. Right, let's suppose another situation again. We have looked at above equilibrium. Let's look at below equilibrium. Below equilibrium, at a price that is below equilibrium, we see that more is demanded by the suppliers, so by the consumers, than what is than what is supplied on the market. In other words, there is excess demand on the market when the price is too low or below the equilibrium, which creates, so that excess demand creates a shortage on the market. Right. I think there's a hand. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to ask, when suppliers lower the price, is that when we have sales so that they can reach equilibrium?
That would be a way to try and clear out stock, right? Because you are having excess of the stock which you are not able to clear on the market. So you try and have those sales promotions or other strategies that can help you to get back to the equilibrium. Because it might be perhaps that the product that you are selling on the market is way above equilibrium. right? The price is way above equilibrium. So you need to lower it so that it can reach a point whereby whatever you're offering on the market, you're able to clear. That's where we say the markets are clearing. Okay, so that could be a good example of how suppliers can beat down the prices. That can be through sales promotions. Okay, if you're selling tomatoes, that's where you say, okay, if you buy one, I give you another one for free. Right. Right. So what about shortages now? So at this moment now, I would want you guys to share with me any experience with excess demand or shortages of whatever commodity that we have witnessed on the market. It can be a commodity, a price for, sorry, a good like, okay, any good. Let me hear from you guys. Any experience, what happened when you wanted to buy something and it was not available, right? Right, let's hear from Sibusiso.
Okay, thanks, sir. I would like to use the practical example. I think all of us, we have experienced it to actually grasp the concept of this, because these terms, they can be pretty much big at times to understand, you know? So
Yeah.
you'll understand the situation of when we didn't have eggs because of the outbreak of the chicken virus and stuff like that. So
Yes.
the demand at that point was pretty much higher for eggs, and
Yes.
the price was also higher.
Yes.
And again, there was scarcity in terms of eggs and stuff like that. So I don't know, perhaps maybe you can please give me some, what you call this, a breakdown of actually how like what transpired during that process by explaining what you just explained now, because
Okay.
I'm confused this side. Thanks, sir.
All right. Thank you so much for bringing that practical example. It's really relevant and significant. Right. So during the egg shortage era, what really happened there? So you see, it's like a complex matter if you look at it, because it didn't really start on the eggs issue, but I think it was from the chickens themselves, whereby I think perhaps there was a virus. There was a virus that was affecting the chicken. And then the chickens are the ones that are making the eggs. And then now we're experiencing an effect on the eggs market. So there are some, these goods, they are related goods. We have chickens, eggs, right? So if anything happens to okay, let me call it the parent commodity or something, then definitely the other commodity is going to be affected. Okay, let me break it down this way. Look at this. There's a shortage of eggs on the market, okay? The suppliers are, all of a sudden, they are now supplying less on the market, or they are now able to supply less on the market. That's when you go to Checkers, ShopRite, or any other shop, you find no eggs, or the shelves are cleared, or there's nothing in the shop. The next thing that would happen is you might find even eggs selling outside the shop or in the black market, because those guys, maybe they have ways of getting those eggs, and then they can sell them no longer at the normal price, but at a higher price. Why? Because you need eggs for breakfast, and some can't do without the eggs. So whatever the price, you name it, you name the price, they are willing to pay. So the consumers themselves will start bidding up the price of the good. So that's why you'd find the price will start increasing slightly until it reaches a new equilibrium, whereby supply now equilibrates with demand. Right. So what is making this price to increase is excess demand on the market, where consumers now, they are bidding up the price. Okay, let me try to illustrate it this way, in a different way. You go to a shop, someone mentioned about masks, right? And you want to buy masks, and they are not there. And then you are frustrated. You know the frustration of not getting what you're looking for. And then there's another guy outside who is selling the same mask that you're looking for. but is quite aware of what is happening on the market, that there are no masks in this shop, but I'm the only one who is having these masks. So what am I going to do? I'm going to increase the price. So that if, as a consumer, you were willing to buy 5 masks, and then now the price is doubled or so, you are only able to buy maybe 2. So it's a way of rationing so that each of the customers can get at least 1, or some can get. Right. Another example, I don't know if I've broken this down for you in a way that you understand, but let's look at lockdown again. There were bans on alcohol sales, right? So officially, alcohol was not allowed to be sold in those official places, pubs and stuff like that. But it was found, it found its way through the black market. And it was sold at double, sometimes triple the price. Why? Because there was excess demand on the market. Supply was limited because suppliers were not able to officially sell it, right? So people found themselves buying it somehow through the black market, right? So that's another illustration of excess demand as well. Right, so yeah, I think let's hear from the chat section if there's something. Right, I think the explanations are quite self-explanatory, so you can go through them. Another example that I normally give is that one for taxis. If you've ever used public transport, you know, there's a point in time where you get to the taxi rank and there are no taxis. There are a lot of commuters who want to go home, but they can't because the taxis are, I might say, insufficient, or at that very moment, there are no taxis, right? So in other words, supply of taxis is less than the demand for the service, right? So if it is in other setups, if it is not fully regulated, if the prices of taxis are not fully regulated, that's why you find that when there is one tax that is loading, it will start to increase the price, right? But if there is regulation, you know, it might not be possible. But if there is no regulation, you find out that the tax will now double, the fare for the taxi is now going to maybe double or even go up by more than 150%, something like that. Or another example is when you go to a restaurant and then you want to eat, you get there, but there are no seats, right? If there are no seats, more people want to enjoy the service, but they can't. Why? Because the supply at that moment, the ability of this restaurant to supply the needs of all, or to satisfy the needs of all the customers that are there at that very moment, it's not managing, right? And then number one is either you can wait in the queue until you can get a seat, or you can go back home, or you can find an alternative, right? But at that moment, you can see that there is excess what? There is excess demand at that particular restaurant, right? So how then now is the price likely to increase? You are paying by waiting, right? It's not only like you are paying in monetary terms. If you decide to wait in the queue, you are paying somehow, because in terms of time that you are wasting, not wasting per se, but the time that you are going to spend in the queue waiting to be served, that's the price that you are paying. Okay, excess supply, an alternative example is when you get to the tax rank, you want to go, but, okay, not but, when you get there, there are a lot of taxis and they are struggling to get full. Still, if there was no regulation, those who are supplying they supply the service, they are likely to reduce the price towards equilibrium. But if there is regulation, you just keep on waiting until the tax gets full and then you go. So excess supply, that's when you see too much of a good on the market, but less of it is being demanded. Okay. Right. We've looked at demand, we've looked at supply, we've brought the pieces together. Now let's introduce some shocks to the market, whereby we now say, remember when we were drawing the supply and demand, we were holding all those other factors constant. But now let's allow them to vary. Let's allow income to change. Let's allow other factors to change also and make an analysis. Right. So a shock is introduced to the market when demand or supply both shift. So when you introduce a shock like an income shock, let's say there is an increase in income for the consumers, demand increases, it shifts to the right, right? And at the same time, maybe there's a discovery of a new technology. Remember, technology affects supply side of the economy. And now the supply is shifting to the right, demand is shifting to the right as well. So we want to find the market outcome. What is going to happen to the price on the market? What is going to happen to the quantity traded on the market? So one or more of the variables previously held constant are now allowed to change. Demand, supply, or both can be shocked at the same time, right? So there can be a technological shock, an income shock, or it can be expectations or anything. All those other factors that we held in constant or holding constant, now they are changing, which has an effect on the curve, either the supply curve or the supply curve. So let's have an illustration. Suppose there is a baby boom. I'm sure some of us know what a baby boom is. Baby boom is when there is an increased birth rate in the economy. I think in 1946, America witnessed baby booms, or actually that generation is called baby boomers, I think. You can also check on that. So Procter & Gamble. So suppose we have, or there is a baby boom, an increased birth rate. Still remember our old friend, the diaper situation or the Pampers situation. So if there is a baby boom, definitely we're likely to see an increased demand for what? For Pampers, right? Right. So Procter & Gamble discover at the same time. This is happening at the same time. Remember, previously we had said we are holding everything constant. No, but now we're saying no. In the real world, things happen, right? You get fired today, you lose your job, there is no income. At the same time, inflation or ESCOM increases the bills, or fuel is also increasing, right? Or your child is now starting grade 1 or something. All those things that are happening, that's the real world. But remember, we said we start from a model and then we try to expand it and see if what happens if this is increased or this is reduced and stuff like that. So we can make analysis based on these graphs or these models that we have discussed just now. So now this company, Procter & Gamble, discover a new technology at the same time when we are having a baby boom. New technology that reduces production costs, which means maybe previously the company was able to produce only 100 diapers per day. But because of the technology, they're even now able to produce twice the output in 1 hour or so, right? So we want to see how is the price and quantity of diapers, or sorry, Pampers, going to be affected on the market. I think this one I'm going to illustrate. I'm going to try and illustrate, because I didn't put it here, but I hope, just hold on while I set up my... Yeah, so now we are allowing for multiple factors to change at the same time. Here I've just included 2 factors, but you can say, okay, at the same time, the economy is also booming. Incomes are increasing, and income has got an effect on the demand side mainly of our economy, and people are now able to buy even more diapers at the same time. Okay, so let me draw this for you so that we can... Right, so I'm going to illustrate with the aid of a diagram. It's unfortunate I didn't put it here, but it was going to be easier that way. So let me share a different screen. Okay. Allow me to share. Right, so let me hear from you guys if you are having any question that you think might need attention because you're almost coming to the end of our session today. We are going to end with this diagram, and then I'm going to share some important information that might be useful to some of you or to all of you. Any question or contribution so far? Right. Okay, it's coming out. Just hold on. Yeah, I think there's a hand up. Is it Sibusiso? There's also AT. So you can jump in that order. Or maybe it's an odd hand or. Right, so I'm going to share. Okay, just hold on. Right. Okay. There we go. Right. Just indicate with some thumbs up if you can see the screen that I'm sharing now. Oh, I think it's fine. So I'm going to illustrate this. So remember, we have two factors at play. The first factor is a baby boom. The assumption is that when there is a baby boom, increased birth rates, there's likely to be an increase in the demand for diapers. So I'm going to have my original demand curve. Oh, sorry for that. So this is going to be my original demand curve. I'm going to call it D1. Remember to label your axis. This is quantity demanded, quantity of diapers demanded. And then we have the price of Pampers. Now, if there is an increase in birth rate, remember to have the original what? Equilibrium. So this is the supply. I'm going to call it supply 1, which is S1 to indicate that was the initial supply curve. You can call it S0, D0, whichever way that you prefer. So I'm going to have my equilibrium price, which I'm going to call P1 and Q1, which means before we introduced the N-shock, before we talked about the baby boom, diaper technology and what, this is what we were having, which means diapers or Pampers were being sold at P1 and Q1 of them were being traded on the market. Now, with the new well, I'm trying to find a different color so that it can be easier for you to follow through. Okay, anyway, it's fine. I'm just going to make it a bit bold. So following a new diaper technology that reduces cost, we are likely to witness an increase in supply, shifting from S1 to S2. So you can put some arrows to show the direction of movement, or you can just discuss to say the supply has shifted from S1 to S2. Right, but at the same time, there is also a baby boom, which is likely to increase the demand for diapers from D1 to a new demand curve, D2. So where will be our new equilibrium? Our new equilibrium will be where the new supply curve is interacting with the new demand curve, which is somewhere here. Let me call this Q2. And then now on the price, listen to this carefully. On the price, it might not be really clear whether the price is going to increase or the price is going to fall. It will be uncertain. Why? Because it will depend on whether the effect of the baby boom is greater than the effect of the diaper technology. I know that this might be complex for now, but let me just say it. So let's suppose that this is the quantity demanded, and this is your price, and then this is your original demand curve. I'm calling it D1, and this is the original supply curve. I'm calling it S1. I hope you can see my diagrams clearly. Now, if this is the original quantity and this is the original price, and if you suppose that now maybe the effect of the diaper technology is greater than the effect of the baby boom, which means demand will shift by less than, in terms of magnitude, by a smaller magnitude compared to the shift of the supply curve, because we said the supply effect or the technology effect or the diaper technology effect is actually greater than the baby boom effect. So you see that overall the price is going to fall, but quantity, it's certain that is going to increase. But price, like I've said, it will depend on the first diagram here. I have tried to make the two effects equal, which definitely means that there will be no effect on the price. But if the supply effect is greater, the price is going to fall. If the demand effect was greater, let's say demand was shifting like by this magnitude, we are looking at the new demand curve where it is interacting with the new supply curve, which is something on a higher price with even more quantity being traded on the market. Is it making sense? I don't want to confuse you. If it's not, I can repeat there's a hand. I think Sibusiso, your hand is up.
Right, thanks. I just want to know, in a case whereby there is high demand as well as a high price, so in this case, how will it appear on the graph? Because I can see on the graph that when the demand is high, actually the demand curve shift rightwardly, and then the price on the supply curve on the first diagram remains the same, and then on the second diagram it drops. So I just want to understand, in a case whereby the price is high and the demand is high, how do we then show that on the diagram, on the graph?
I'm not clearly getting your question, but the price in this case is an outcome of what is happening in the market. So we are noticing changes on the price because of what is happening on the demand side and the supply side. So what is certain, given the condition that we have of baby boom and diaper technology, which reduces cost, what is certain is an increase in supply. That is obvious. No matter whether the baby boom effect is greater than the diaper technology effect, it doesn't matter because quantity definitely is going to increase. What is uncertain is whether is the price going to increase or it is going to fall. It is only going to fall when the supply effect is greater than the demand effect. In other words, the baby boom effect is less than the diaper technology effect.
Mm.
You get what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, no, I think I'm getting you just a bit though, because what I was actually looking for in this case was that I know that the new equilibrium will be made. So meaning everything, it will change. However, I just wanted to know, like, how does it happen whereby, like, remember earlier on I asked you about the like the scenario like of the eggs, whereby you find that there was scarcity and then the demand of eggs was high, and then we ended buying the eggs at a higher price as well. So that's where my question comes in, as to, in the graph form, how do you then show that new equilibrium shift?
let me try to do this. Okay, I think I get your question.
Yes, sir.
So this is our quantity for diapers, and this is our price for diapers. This is our original demand curve, D1. This is our original supply curve, S1. Now, let's now suppose that maybe the demand effect or the baby boom effect is actually having greater results in terms of affecting demand than the technology in affecting supply. There's a question that I'm going to attend to, which is saying, how do you determine which one is greater? Okay. So if demand effect is greater than the supply effect, which means that demand is going to shift by more or by a greater magnitude than the supply, which is something that I'm going to illustrate now. Maybe like this, okay? Let's say this is T2. But the supply effect is just minimal or it's insignificant, okay? There's maybe to shift by just a smaller what? Magnitude. Let me call this S2. So we are looking for the equilibrium where the new demand curve is equilibrating with the new supply curve, which is somewhere here. But remember the original was here, which is P1 and Q1 being demanded. And this is our Q2, and this is our new price, P2, okay. So now, because the demand effect is greater than the supply effect, we witness that the price is going to increase, quantity is going to also to increase. But if it's the opposite, if supply is going to be greater than, look at this, supply, instead of shifting only this way, we are going to have it shifting this way. The new equilibrium will be here, whereby we are having a lower price, but still more quantity being supplied on the market. So now, answering the question in the chart to say, how then do you determine? That one, it will be a result of some estimations, right? To say, okay, there are a lot of equations that you can, sort of models that you can develop. You can run some regression equations to determine, to say, okay, if the diaper technology is going to reduce our cost by this much, then we are likely to see supply increasing by this much. So it will be sort of estimations that will be done. But for the purpose of the exam or for the purpose of understanding economics, it will be given to say, suppose that the baby diaper technology has got a greater effect on demand than it has on supply. Then you know in your mind that, okay, so this is going to shift by this much or by a greater percentage compared to the supply, something like that. Right, let me check another question. Okay, the demand is influenced by baby boom, not by an increase in income. How do you, okay, I don't know if it's a question or it's a contribution. But baby boom, you know, when there is a baby boom, it's sort of like an increase in population, right? An increase in population is going to affect the amount of goods that will be. Okay, thank you. Right. So that was it that I wanted to illustrate on this part. Let's go back to our slide. And then we conclude today's session. I think there's another hand. Is it Susiso? Or it was an old hand? It was a new hand.
No, it's an old hand. Sorry, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Right. What I have in front of me is just a screenshot of the first question, which for which we are going to have a session on Tuesday, whereby we'll try to break down the question to say, okay, what can you come up with given this question, or what kind of an article that you can look for in order to approach this question in an efficient and effective manner, so that you don't lose marks or you don't miss out any important stuff. I'll just read through this quickly, and then I'll give you a sample article that we are going to analyze on Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. or at an agreed time that we are going to announce. So now, your group is expected to carry out the following activity. read news or media articles from June 23 to date. So there's a demarcation here regarding the date of your article. So you don't want a situation where you get an article that is before June 2023. So we want the most recent articles in this case. And choose one which has a direct bearing on microeconomics. Another demarcation again. We don't want articles that speak about macroeconomics. We want that have got a direct, not indirect, a direct bearing on microeconomics. Because in economics, you can link everything throughout, right? You can link micro and macro in some way, but we want something that has got direct bearing on micro, sorry. So discuss the economic issues raised and how they affected the business, the society, or the economy at large. 5 marks for that. Identify the market structure that best describe the sector being discussed and support your selection. So you need evidence to say, okay, if you are saying the market structure in question is an oligopoly, is a monopoly, is a perfect competition, which doesn't exist, monopolistic competition, all those markets, there are 4 main market structures that you need to consider in terms of your selection, given the article that you've chosen. If you look at the bottom here, I've said, choose an article that allows you to fully apply knowledge from theory. Because there are some articles that you choose an article and then you'll be stuck along the way in terms of how are you going to bring out all these points that are given here. So before you look, you consider an article, you need to look at, does it fully answer or does it help me answer some of the questions that have been asked here? If it doesn't, we throw it out. And then discuss the relevant economic approaches, theories, and oh, screen is blank. Is it for me? Is it for everyone, or what's happening?
No, I think it's for him because I can see it from my side.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Maybe he or she would need to make some adjustments on the screen. Right. So discuss the relevant economic approaches or theories that explain the issues raised in the article. You must demonstrate your understanding of the relevant microeconomic theories, e.g. demand theory. You have been given a hint already regarding what are you going to focus on. Demand, the supply theory. We have covered demand and supply today, so that part might not be a problem. Market structures, that might be something that you need to explore. That will be on Tuesday. And then elasticity theory, that's another theory as well. ETC, which means you are not limited to these theories that have been discussed here, but you can expand your analysis to other theories. That's 15 marks for you. You need to make a copy or a scan or paste the article as an annexure at the back of your assignment. This allows the marker to read your article and be able to assess the accuracy of your analysis. Right. So I have an example of an article that I might select. Is that a question, a contribution? I see someone's mic is unmuted. Okay. So, oh, I was supposed to open as in, okay, it's fine, I'll go back. So this is an article that we are having, but I'm not saying we should all focus on this. But it's another massive electricity price hike hitting South Africans soon. And then if you read through, you understand what's going on regarding, this is about Eskom. Right, it's a very short article, but you know, whenever we mention Eskom, we have, it's a key institution that has got a bearing on almost any business in South Africa. Because for us to operate, for any business to operate, we need electricity. For us to be having this session, there is some power involved in that. Be it a service business or a manufacturing business, you need electricity. So when we touch on electricity, when we remove the plug on electricity, then the economy is going to suffer significantly. Right. So that is the article. That was just for demonstrative purposes to see some of the examples of articles that you might consider selecting. So what is next now? That will be the next question. Remember, I've introduced you to who we are and what we do. So this is what will be next in terms of those that will be willing to be part of the journey. Right. So we are going to be having an assignment class that is focusing on trying to break down the assignment question, and then you can have that as the foundation to do your own further research. And I'll repeat this again, or I'll say this for the first time, of course. Our sessions are not a replacement of your own research. You need to do your own research basing on some of the concepts that we are going to be covering in our sessions, right? So we do the sessions, you ask your questions, how are you going to approach this, how are you going to approach that, and then we give our view. After that, you go now with your team and you do a deep dive into literature or textbooks, and you find more information to actually cement your arguments or to produce a top quality assignment or document, right? So assignment classes that we are going to be having, the costs associated with that, because that's a very important thing, in as much as you are interested in having these sessions, but the cost is very important. So it's 250 for attendance if you are willing to be part of the journey. And we are also going to be having an introductory class on accounting. The date is yet to be set, and we are going to be having a similar approach, trying to break down the concepts, be it in accounting or economics or another module, so that you can have a deeper understanding of what the module is all about and how you can get the most out of it. Right. Then for these are packages, different packages that I'm just illustrating right now. We're also going to be having some in-depth sessions or in-depth classes, mainly for accounting and economics, because from our previous experience, we've noted that these are the two modules that people or students are having challenges with. The others, they are mainly research-based. You can actually go on the internet or try to find information on your own and figure out your way out. So in-depth classes for accounting and economics are going to be announced, but those ones, they depend on the demand. If you have enough demand for us to start those classes, then we can consider them. Otherwise, we might be just focusing on assignment discussions, whereby we come together, and we also encourage you guys to research before even the assignment class, to research on your own, try to figure a way out, and then we come together, we have a discussion, and then you go your own way and you write your own assignment. Then we also have another service whereby we look at the review and editing. You have written your own work, and then you just want editing or reviewing. We also do that. Last package is the exam preparation sessions. These exam preparation sessions, what we do is before exam, let's say the exam is next week or 2 weeks to come, we sit together, and then based on our previous experience and knowledge, we in some cases you might be having a case study that you are given. If there is no case study, maybe there is a guideline regarding what you are to expect in the exam. Based on that, we discuss previous question papers, how they were asked, and how you should, or someone would have approached them. And we give you those solutions for practice purposes. You also do your own research. And remember, I always emphasize on you getting your hands dirty by researching on your own. Not just taking whatever we are giving you as is, or taking it verbatim, word for word. That's not the approach that we encourage the students to do. We encourage them to read, to study, and to maximize their potential, in as much as we are here to provide guidance in that regards. Right. So I know these are our contact details. Universal Research Institute. You can send an email, send a WhatsApp, or you can call. And this is our website. Please visit our Facebook page, and also like the content that we'll be creating, that will give us energy to keep on generating content. Right, let me see if there is any other comment from you guys or any questions that might need to be. Okay, no, there's no question. I think it's fine. So this is it for today's session, but for those that are interested, we are going to share further information on our group or on our platform, on our WhatsApp platform, on how we are going to be approaching this journey. On our side, it's not our first time to assist PGD students, right? We have vast years of experience in dealing with questions and anything that pertains to the journey that is lying ahead of you. And this is not only for PGD, but it's for even MBA. Some are starting even MBL will be having such sessions or similar sessions for all that. All right, there's a question that says the fee for the assignment info, the 250 is individual or group price. This is individual individual price. Why individual? Because in as much as the group might say, we don't want to be part of that, and one would say, no, I would want to attend, the knowledge that you're going to get from that is sort of personal knowledge that is going to help you in preparation for the exam as well. So the 250 is individual. And yeah, that's what I can say for now. Payment details, we are going to send banking details on the WhatsApp page, on the WhatsApp group, sorry. And then all the other information regarding the other packages, we are going also to share on that platform. Any other questions that we might entertain at the moment?